everyone, and welcome to another Sunday Talk within the Nine-Sided Circle at our usual time every week. I'm one of your two hosts, Noor Kyle, along with...
the other one of your two hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
And here's where we do our spiel. Thank you for joining us. If you're joining us on YouTube, then we would be super pleased and grateful if you would do the whole like, comment, subscribe thing. That really helps us out. And as much as everybody hates saying it, that is one way that you can definitely show that you appreciate our work and support us. And we're trying to grow our channel for reasons we have mentioned previously.
To stick it to the man.
Yes.
Yes,
please
we're
help
trying
us
to stick it to the man.
Yes. And yeah, we have ads on our channel now that we did not sign up for, and we know that we don't want to subject you to that. So the faster we can get to 1,000 subscribers, the more quickly we can kind of use the YouTube Partner Program for our own devices, which is to get rid of advertisements. So we would love it if you would join us in reaching that goal. That would be awesome.
Yeah, it's either that or we're going to have to start doing really weird stuff that forces YouTube to demonetize us. And we want to avoid that unless we absolutely have to.
Yep. That would probably bite us in the ass in other ways. So we're seeing what we can do. So anything else we need to add as far as spiel goes?
Like our videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes us feel good when you like our videos or hate our videos. That's okay too. But we prefer the likes. It gets us up in YouTube's algorithm, and that seems to make a difference about who can find us. So hit that little like button. Small thing for you, big thing for us. We love it.
And your comments, as far as those go, we do read every single one, and we respond to most of them, except for spam. You know, those don't make it. But other than that, yeah, we're happy to have the dialogue. We really do enjoy it. So, with that, you know, we got our links below with our email list, and you can connect with us on Facebook that way, or you could buy swag if you like, but no pressure.
Yes. Yeah, no pressure, but everybody looks good in a Nine-Sided Circle t-shirt.
We have found this.
It doesn't say Nine-Sided Circle on it. It's just a rather cool Enneagram.
Yep.
It's not. You're not going to be advertising our school or anything. You're just going to be sporting mystical symbol, great conversation starters. It'll make you the hit of the party. So check it out and get one. Chicks dig it. Guys dig it. Everybody digs it.
And if you're not interested in a shirt, well, we also appreciate, donations, which we are calling alms, because this helps us support our work. It keeps us going.
And this is the time of the year when we have all of the big bills coming in at once.
Yep.
So alms for the poor.
There we go. So, there we go. What are we talking about this evening, Mushtaq?
I don't know. What are we talking about, Noor?
Well, I guess we're going to be talking about breath work in relation to the work, capital W, specifically Amal, the great work, as we talked about it last week. And this is something that is not necessarily unique to our practice, but is certainly foundational to our practice.
Yeah, it is so not unique to our practice that virtually every spiritual path on the planet has some form of breath work. I can think of maybe 3 or 4 off the top of my head that don't, but they are the exceptions, not the rule.
And this is also something I use in teaching my singing students as well, and we will see why it is beneficial. But yeah, why don't you tell us more, Mushtaq?
Well, I'm going to start out with a quote. And the quote is from Bahauddin Naqshband, who is sort of one of our first cousins. It says, "This order is built on breath. One, therefore, must safeguard his breath in, in the time of his inhalation and exhalation and in between." And that is going to be the theme of tonight's talk. We've talked about breath before. I'm going to put a couple of links at the end into some of our other breathwork videos where we go into more detail than we go into this evening, and the wheres and how fors and the whys and what have yous. Today we're just going to talk about the necessity to start with breath. One reason for this is that your breath is an interesting thing in that you can control your breathing, right? You can hold your breath. You can let your breath out. You can speed your breath up. You can slow your breath down. You can run and regulate your breath so that you are not doing, let's say, one breath per stride. And this is a unique superpower that human beings have. Most animals cannot regulate their breath worth a damn. Most animals, when they run at their top speed, are limited to taking one breath per stride, no more, no less. And that means that you're going to go into respiratory distress pretty quick when you're running. And the cheetah is the fastest animal, land animal on Earth for a quarter mile or less. Then he poops out. A human can run literally all day. There are very few animals that have this quality of endurance with their breath. There's humans, there's the Saluki dog, which doesn't even get warmed up in its running for the first mile. But after the first mile, they're the fastest land animal on Earth, doing about 35 miles an hour all day long. And I have to talk with somebody. I'm pretty sure they have a little bit more regulation, breath regulation than most dogs, but we're talking about humans. Humans can breathe consciously. And humans can breathe completely unconsciously. And that means that our breath is an interface to our consciousness. If you think about it, if you have a particular emotion, let's say you're upset, your breath is going to change. You're going to be breathing slightly differently than you usually would. Now, if you learn that pattern, and you're sitting there and you're feeling just fine, neutral, everything's good, and you start breathing in that pattern, you'll feel upset. So the feedback tends to go both ways. Breath to emotion, emotion to breath. And that means that your breath gives you a handle on your inner states. And this is what we're going to talk about tonight. And this is something this is not a new idea. The Sufis have known about this for 1,000 years. The yogis have known about this for 2,000 years. The Yoga Sutras lay this out in the second book, the Sadhana Pada, and they lay it out quite nicely. The exact way that one should breathe in order to breathe consciously. Traditional Sufi practice, some of it has the same thing going. I don't know if we stole it from them or we arrived by convergent evolution. That's a debate that somebody else can have because I really don't care. But we do know that certain breath practices wake you up or allow you to wake up or help you to stay awake. Certain breath practices can put you to sleep, which is interesting. Again, it goes both ways. You can breathe in such a way that it fosters unconsciousness. It fosters mechanical your mechanical nature. And there are a few places where I found that teach this. Not to drop any names, but the Moonies have a breath practice that teaches you how to be less and less conscious. Transcendental meditation has a breath practice that can help you be less and less conscious. And a few others, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to drop any names.
Not to drop names or anything, of
No.
course. No.
But we're interested in breathing that fosters your awakeness. Now, I am going to read you from the section on pranayama from the Yoga Sutras. This is Chip Hartsvelt's translation, because I'm too lazy to translate it on the fly. He says, with effort relaxing, the flow of inhalation and exhalation can be brought to a standstill. This is called breath regulation. As the movement patterns of each breath, inhalation, exhalation, lull, are observed as to duration, number, and area of focus, breath becomes spacious and subtle. As realization dawns, the distinction between breathing in and breathing out falls away, and the mind's potential for concentration is realized. Now we have a few things going on here. With effort relaxing, the flow of inhalation and exhalation can be brought to a standstill. It doesn't mean that you stop breathing, period. I inhale. I exhale. At the end of the exhale, I pause. That's the standstill. I'm not going, right? I'm going, like that. Very simple. But that pause is everything. From the quote to Bahauddin Naqshband says, one must safeguard his breath in the time of his inhalation and exhalation and in between, italics of the voice mine. That pause is incredibly important, and it's easy to get it wrong. If you get it wrong, you create stress. If you get it right, you relieve stress. You create stress when you try and hold your breath instead of naturally pausing. You relieve stress if you exhale and naturally pause, and then let the air come in when it wants to. Not when you think it wants to, but when it actually wants to. There's also a pause at the end of the inhale. So I exhale, I pause, I inhale, I pause for a second, then I exhale again. The pause at the top of the inhale is not prolonged. It is, I think of it as the way a pendulum swings on a clock, reaches the end of its swing, and it pauses at the end of its swing, and then it comes back down. Make sense so far?
Any questions so far?
Any answers? Dave will have an answer for us.
Sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, feel free to chime in at any time, because I know you have material on this, and it might be some that I don't. So
I'm exploring breath a fair bit at the moment, unbeknownst to most people. I spend a fair amount of time some evenings bent in different shapes in the dark by myself, breathing into strange bits of my body. And I've just been able to get up into some of the bits like on the front of the spine behind the sternum and up around the dome of the lungs, and also down through the QLs. And for me, it's actually quite remarkable after doing breathing work for a very long time to find that there's this continued onion layer of deeper and deeper restrictions and the extent to which they link through, like link into organs, and you can make interesting connections with emotional states and that type of thing if you add in the layer of sensation with the breath and with muscular tension and with kind of various types of atmospherics. So who would have thought breathing was so interesting?
Yeah. This, what you're describing, of course, is graduate school breathing. What we're talking about here, what I'm talking about, is kindergarten breathing. So between us, we may be able to get a whole spectrum. You never know.
Very cool. Yeah. Yep. It's all gone. You drank it all.
Oh no,
No
somebody
more
get him
coffee
another
for
cup of
Dave.
coffee.
Oh my god. He's
Yeah,
well prepared.
yep, 9 cups of coffee at least, Dave, during the talk. So,
All right.
I'm going to sort of switch, not channels, but I'm gonna get all biblical on y'all.
We
And
better
we're gonna
brace
look at,
ourselves. Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna look at one of the more, I consider it one of the more paradoxical sections of the book of Matthew, which you'll find at 1231. And it's one that I've always thought about since the first time I've heard it. And I'll give you a basic translation of it first. I have it here in an English translation, the Aramaic, the Greek, and we'll see what we can figure out. Jesus said, "Because of this I say to you, all sin and evil speaking shall be forgiven to men, but the evil speaking of the Spirit shall not be forgiven to men." Now, the Aramaic is a bit more interesting, and the best English translation I've found is, "Because of this, I say unto you, that the sons of man," i.e., mankind, "will be forgiven all of their sins and all of their blasphemies. But the blasphemy against the Ruach al-Kodosha," which is the Ruach al-Quds, or the Holy Spirit, or the sacred breath is the best way to translate that. The Spirit of holiness will be forgiven to the sons of men, will not be forgiven to the sons of men. So why is this weird thing that happens in this chapter where Jesus, who is like the most forgiving guy you've ever met, says, you do this and you ain't going to be forgiven? And what is the this that you would be doing? Let us speculate together. Let's talk about the word blasphemy first. The word blasphemy can be, it's from the Greek originally, and it means something pretty literally like to say evil of, to speak evil of. And it's a pretty close translation in the Aramaic as well as the Greek. So, sin and blasphemy, I love it. So why would the guy who's known as Ruh Allah to the Arabs, the Spirit of God, why would he say that to blaspheme against the sacred breath would be something that could not be forgiven? What could that possibly mean? Do you think that that means if you sit around going, hey, sacred breath, you suck. Holy Ghost, your sheet is dirty, whatever. You think it's that? Or could it be something else? Don't all talk at once.
Who has a guess?
I'll guess, and I'll go
Yeah.
Gajithian, and I'll say that it's something to do with the formation of the essence relating to the breath, and that you don't progress along the path to full adulthood unless you can master that to some significant degree.
Were you sneaking looks at my notes? Damn it. That's a pretty damn good answer. So let's think about the sacred breath for the moment, the Ruh Al-Quds. Where does that come from? What does that mean? Why would we think of that? And to do this, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. So I'm going to give you the Islamic version of it because I like it slightly better than the version in the Torah. The version in the Torah says the same thing, which is that God breathed his breath into Adam, and then Adam lived. He became a living being. Now, Islam describes it like this: God fashions from the clay of the earth, from black clay, some of the verses say, the shape of a man. And he calls all of his angels and maybe a bunch of the jinn. And he says to them, behold, I am going to breathe my sacred breath into this form, and it will become a living being. And when it becomes a living being, bow down to it. And then God literally breathes his breath into this inanimate object, and it becomes a living form, a living being. And then all of the angels bow down except for Shaitan, who, Iblis does his whole pride thing, and you got that side of the story, but we're not talking about that. What do you think that this tells you about why breath work is so important? Yes, Noor, do you have an idea?
I was just gonna poke at people.
Okay, poke at people. You're good at that.
So, what was the question again? I want to make sure we repeat it so people aren't distracted.
What's up with this? That's the question. What's up with this whole breathe the air and then bow down and all of this kind of stuff? What's up with that?
Do you have any thoughts, Mr. King? No, you don't want to be put on the spot yet. How about you, Zainab?
It sounds to be a very big question. So
It is a big question.
Yeah. It kind of resembles for me as being a key to opening to the essence. It's like so yeah. But
go ahead.
You had to break it down and starting from the bottom is I will let others to contribute.
Okay. Dave has contributed something auspiciously.
Yes. Thank you, Zainab. Dave says, this process sounds auspiciously alchemical.
Suspiciously alchemical.
Suspiciously alchemical, yes.
And that wouldn't be wrong. All right. So within this is the key to growing a soul. Remember a couple weeks back or a week back? When was it? We talked about growing souls.
Was it last week or the week before? In any case, it was recently. Yeah.
Yeah, last week. It was very recently. I will put a thing up on the end of the video that will take you to it.
We'll make sure we do that.
Yep. So, in order to help you understand this, I am going to give you an extension of the basic breathing practice. And it works like this. You're doing your basic breath, your fundamental breath. So you are exhaling, pausing, inhaling. Now, what are two other words for inhale and exhale? Not used terribly often anymore. Can anybody think of what these two words are? Going once, going twice.
Inspiration.
Yeah, David. David, you got
Thanks,
it
Jonathan.
for one.
That was Jonathan, I think. Yeah.
Well, David
And
also wrote it
David
down.
also, yes. Yeah. Okay, inspiration.
Yeah. And what is the and? Expiration.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So when you breathe in, it's inspiring. When you breathe out, you are literally expiring. What is the last thing a human being does on this earth?
Dead.
Right?
Expires.
You breathe out, your lungs let go of all of their air, and you're gone.
So I see Levita's unmuted. Did you have something you wanted to share?
It took me a while to get it unmuted, so everybody beat me to it.
Oh, okay. Well, you get points too. The points don't matter. Everybody gets them. All right. Cool. Great.
And you can turn your points in for amusing prizes. So here is what you do. You're at the end of your pause, and the air is ready to come in. As the air comes in, get the feeling of God breathing the breath of life into you. This is why our inhale is passive, it's relaxed. It's not going, right? It's just letting the air in because it's the first action. So you imagine what it would be like for the divine being, the essence of the universe to inspire you with the breath of life. And when you exhale, imagine that you are breathing that breath back to the divine as a last act. The pause is that state in between pre-birth and post-birth, pre-life and post-life. So the pause is you floating in the divine unity. Inhale, let the life be breathed into you. Pause at the top. That pause at the top is your entire life. Exhale, give the breath back to the divine unity. It takes a day or two to really get the hang of doing this, but it is a very, very interesting practice. And if it's too much to do it all at once, especially that giving your life back to the unity, then just do the in-breath until it no longer freaks you out to realize that it's a cycle. Everything comes in, everything goes back, everything comes in, everything goes back. The idea of eternal reoccurrence is held in this thought. What do you think? Is that too weird?
I don't think it's too weird at all. In fact, I mean, that's something I try to bring into the work I do when I teach people singing, right? Like, we try to get into a flow where the music becomes meditative as a result of kind of allowing the words to breathe you, in the sense that with each phrase you're doing a preparational breath, and then as you go through the phrase you're exhaling, and then you have often a passive inhale because you've used your muscles to allow for that out breath and the formation of words and the production of sound through vibration, all that stuff. But it's meditative in that there is this sense of one thing flowing into the next. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. With each phrase, you're going through that whole cycle. What do you think, Zainab? Do you agree with that? What's your experience with singing?
It's I really like singing with the breath work together. It's more like strength training, but inwards. If that makes sense. And then, like, literally feeling all from the bottom to the top. Whereas before, without the breath and the singing together, it's such a like not knowing zone in the body. So that was a like an interface, like they met together, breath and like feeling the internal muscles of where the voice comes out. So that
Yeah.
was a highlight. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. So, yeah, it's a little bit different from what Mushtak's talking about, specifically in the sense of there's this subtle pause. And in singing, the pause is there because there is always that pendulum-like motion. But I think that it is probably much more brief. But the principles are very similar. Yeah. Yeah. So Mr. Keem says stomach breathing versus chest breathing. Is chest breathing not as good as stomach breathing?
Of course, the answer would be for what, but in this case, we advocate breath starting at the root and working its way up. So most of the breath happens using the muscles of the abdomen, especially the transverse abdominis and the diaphragm. Supplementary breathing, when you need it, goes into the chest. This you'll find when you start doing walking meditation and you're walking at a clip quick enough that you need a little extra oxygen to keep everything in balance. So when I'm sitting here, my chest doesn't really move all that much. I'm just breathing with my abdomen. Now, if I breathe with my chest, you see what my shoulders do here? That's chest breathing. This is abdominal breathing.
Yeah, there's a slight rise in the shoulders.
Yeah. But with my abdominal breathing, the shoulders basically remain relaxed because I don't need more oxygen than that. And then there's a point where you're doing enough exertion that you put yourself in oxygen debt, but that's beyond the scope of this talk. So, yes, using the stomach to breathe. There we go. Back in focus again. All right, so I love this line. As realization dawns, the distinction between breathing in and breathing out falls away. This becomes, in many ways, the highest level of breathing, where you are not actively exhaling, actively inhaling, but your structure and your movement breathe you. When you're sitting and you're not moving at all, you're going to basically just be breathing with your abdomen. But if you're moving, you can let your breath be dictated by your body movement. So if I do this, air comes in naturally without me having to do anything. If I do this, air goes out. That's a silly way to breathe, but that gives you an idea of, as you are moving, every extension becomes an in-breath, every contraction becomes an out-breath, and your movement breathes you. This is, in some ways, the highest form of this, and it will happen to a certain extent once you are just sitting, where the natural flow of in to out and out to in begin to blend together. But again, that takes a couple of weeks of practice to get there. So, what I want you all to take home from this evening's talk is the idea of doing the breath practice as regularly as possible. Don't just make it a formal sitting practice, though that's always good, but practice it throughout your day with the idea of the relaxed inhale, the active exhale, and the pause at the end of the exhale. After you've practiced it to the point where that becomes comfortable, then add in the idea of receiving the divine breath, returning the divine breath. And that gives you an extremely powerful practice that, if you can stay awake while doing it, and it's kind of hard not to, then it will begin to produce permanent, lasting, positive change in yourself. Questions? And they were silent.
Chris, you got any thoughts or questions?
You know, I was thinking about the notion of receiving with mind and giving with emotion as applies to inhale and exhale, and it's something I plan on testing and experimenting with.
Okay, and what were you thinking about this?
I think for me, even just during the talk, I started doing it that way, and I was connecting mind with reception, and then like a kind of, it's hard for me to put into words, but a kind of love on the exhale, and I was feeling more connected with my body because I did it that way.
Okay, cool.
So yeah,
That's useful.
I'll keep trying, and I'll report back.
Please do, because
I
that
love
could
that,
be
yeah.
useful.
Definitely. Thanks. How about you, David? How's it going? What are you thinking about?
Just trying to incorporate the practice already.
Could you hear him?
I did not hear you very clearly, David. I think your mic just needs you a little bit more close.
I was just trying to practice a little during the talk and see what happens if I have many thoughts at the moment.
Okay. I think I heard that, yeah.
Yeah.
Keep up the practice. Yes, see what happens. So how have you benefited from this practice, Mushtaq, if you don't mind sharing?
Now, first, let's
First, Mr.
address.
Keem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Keem shares that I understand that that Sufis during the loud zikr, they use some kind of breath practice.
Oh, yeah. The formal vocal zikr, if done correctly, is all breath practice.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're doing is using the various words, the various names of God and things like that to regulate how you breathe. And there are some ways, like the Rafai sawing breath, for instance. This is why the Rafai were known to the British as the howling dervishes, because they do this really deep, a breath that literally sounds like you're sawing wood in a certain sense. And it's designed to produce certain specific effects on the person. But all of the various names and combination of names that are used in the zikr create different ways to breathe. And the sheikh who is leading the zikr is basically orchestrating your breath practice for you.
By taking the lead and setting the rhythm. Yep. Good connection, Mr. Keem. So.
Oh, and if people don't know what he's talking about, I will dig through the YouTube and find a video of a bunch of crazy Sufis doing the vocal zikr and put it up on our forum.
Sure. Making a note.
Make a note. Don't let me forget to do that.
Got it. Okay.
So that's basically the topic of tonight. Very simple. Breathe. Breathe consciously. Pay attention to your breath.
So I had a question for you.
Okay.
And that was how have you, I mean, this isn't necessarily just about the benefits, right? Quote unquote, what do you get out of it? It is about connection as well. But how have you noticed yourself utilizing this practice in day-to-day life?
It allows me to release any energies. Like, for instance, you're going for a month back east into the petri dish of society, right? Which produces a little anxiety. And so I do a lot of breathing. Breathing can really help regulate the emotions. One of the cool things, if you practice this breath while you are doing it, while you are practicing it correctly, you're basically not really capable of getting lost in negative emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're depressed and you do this breath, it will bring you out of the depression. At least that's my experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think that seems to have been true for me in the long term. In the short term, I think it's a practice-related thing. Like, thoughts still creep up on me, but then I'm able to reinitiate the breath, and that kind of, gets me out of that downward spiral, to use an overused phrase, but it's true.
Yeah, and that's why I'm very specific about how I'm saying this, while you are doing this practice,
Exactly.
if you're doing it correctly.
Mhm.
But your depression will want to pull you out of the practice.
Yeah. Yep. But that's the thing. It just, you trust the process, as we always frequently say, and you will give yourself the opportunity to notice what this can do to break you of your mechanistic habits.
I meant put this up for everybody. Oh, that sucks.
What happened?
This chat will do English and Greek, but it won't do Aramaic.
Mm,
If anybody wants the Aramaic passage, private message me and I'll send it to you. But there is the English and the original Koine Greek.
this
Is the Aramaic above the Greek in the chat?
It's supposed to be, but all I got is boxes because I guess this doesn't do the full ASCII set.
I actually do see text. I don't know if it's Aramaic,
Do you?
though.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, okay, then never mind. Mine didn't do it, but
Yeah.
if yours guys did it, I already got it.
But if it doesn't show up for you,
Yeah,
message Mushtak.
Yeah.
because I got 3. English,
Yep.
something, and Greek.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, me too.
Oh.
And Dave as well. Yeah.
Phew.
So there we go. Do we have any,
There
did you have stuff you wanted to add, Mushtak?
Nope, I'm done.
Okay.
I said what I wanted to say. I'll sit here and answer questions all night
Yeah.
or make up answers to questions all night, as the case may be.
Yeah. I mean, this was a kind of focused thing because this is something we constantly recommend returning to, both for ourselves and for you guys. Because as we often say, it is foundational to this path. It starts here. And in some ways, in some senses, it ends here too. But
Yes.
any other questions or thoughts? It's good to see your face, Chris.
All right, then let's wrap it up for the night.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up early and
Well, we're
take
not
it
wrapping it up early. We're wrapping it up on time for a
on
change.
time.
Go figure.
Hooray. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I guess we can pop into Brady Bunch mode.
And we are in Brady Bunch mode.
All right, and everybody wave to our friends who are watching on YouTube or wherever.
See
to
you
each
all
other.
next time.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.